There are secrets not buried in crimes, but hidden in the breakfast you eat each day. A golden chicken pie, a warm smile from the head chef, and a trace of metal so small it could alter the fate of an entire restaurant chain. That morning, a man sat with his staff at the table, ate with them, laughed with them, but no one knew he was the founder of it all. When the fork slipped, a tiny piece of steel gleamed in the sauce, and everything fell silent. From that moment, the story was no longer about a poisoned meal, but about how one man chose to keep the soul of what his mother once called family. If you've ever believed kindness could save a place already rotting inside, stay, because this story will take your breath away. The smell of baked pie filled the narrow kitchen, mixing with steam and the rattle of the vent fan. Morning began like any other at Ruth's table. Staff gathered around the long table, plates of chicken pot pie steaming. Ethan Cole sat at the far end, gray shirt damp with sweat, hands still smelling of soap. No one knew who he was. They thought he was just the new dishwasher. Laughter echoed from across the room. The white staff sat apart in the bright corner, sandwiches in hand, coffee cups steaming. But at this table, 6 black workers ate in silence, quietly finishing the pies made for the morning shift. The air felt heavy, like the butter itself was freezing mid-air. Ethan cut a piece of pie. Steam blurred the cheap glasses on his face. He chewed slowly. Chicken, potato, carrot, then something strange, sharp, metallic. He couldn't swallow. A sting brushed his tongue. He stopped, frowned slightly, reached into his mouth. His fingertips touched something slick and cold. He pulled it out slowly. A piece of latex glove, soaked in sauce, torn at the edge, with a glint of steel inside. A drop of blood fell into the plate, mixing with the thick yellow sauce. The sound of metal against ceramic cracked the silence. Everyone froze. Maria looked at him, lips trembling. "Are you okay?" No one lifted a fork. No one dared to speak. Ethan looked around. 5 other plates, identical to his. Same pie, same smell. Across the room, the white staff still laughed, still ate sandwiches, oblivious. An invisible line split the room in half. Ethan looked at the glove in his hand, his voice calm but sharp. "Your office now." The head chef turned. His face went pale, eyes darting, words stuck in his throat. Maria's plate slipped and shattered, shards scattering across the floor. Silence solidified. No more laughter. No more sweet smell of pie. Only the scent of metal, of fear, and the hot air pressing down like a storm about to break. Ethan stood, his voice steady, his eyes cold enough to chill the room. Blood from the cut on his lip dripped down his gray sleeve. Every gaze followed as he walked past. No one knew who he really was. They only knew something had just changed. He walked through the line of stoves, past boiling pots and averted eyes. The office door closed behind him. No one spoke. Only the hum of the vent fan remained, and the fading scent of pie in the air. In that silence, they looked at each other, waiting for something to explode. One worker whispered, "Something big just happened." Outside, Ethan's footsteps slowed, heavy, like a countdown before the storm. Morning light slipped through the small window, landing on his hand, where the glove piece still rested, wet, cold, and real. He clenched it tight, feeling like he was holding a truth someone had tried to bury. Sweat mixed with blood, tracing down his palm. He drew a long breath, his eyes darkening. Memories of his mother, her words echoing, "Every meal is a promise of kindness." The thought cut deep. Outside, the kitchen held its breath. No one knew it yet, but that moment was the spark of a storm that would consume everything. A few heartbeats later, 2 weeks earlier, it had all begun with one strange number in a report. 2 weeks earlier, Atlanta glowed through a thin veil of mist. The Ruth's table headquarters rose 6 stories high, glass walls slicing the morning sky like a bright wound. In the top-floor office, Ethan Cole sat alone before the screen, cold numbers running down the report. Revenue rising, costs falling, perfect profit margins. But in all those lines of data, he couldn't hear a single human voice. On the desk, a small photo frame rested in the left corner. A woman in a white nurse's coat held a laughing boy. Behind them, a small yellow kitchen. Ruth Cole, his mother. The woman who worked 2 jobs to raise him. By day, she was a nurse. By night, she returned to the church kitchen, cooking soup for neighbors. She always said, "Feed people like family. Feed with kindness, not with formulas." From that tiny kitchen, Ruth opened her first little diner in West Atlanta. 10 tables, 6 shaky chairs, the smell of baking powder blending with rain on the porch. People called it Ruth's table because she always greeted them with a smile and a warm plate of pie. No one left hungry. No one left without being asked how they were doing. Ethan grew up among onions and flour, between laughter from regulars and his mother's dough-covered hands. He once promised he'd carry her dream forward, build more diners where everyone would be treated like family. And he did. 6 branches. Hundreds of employees. The Ruth's Table logo shines across city boulevards. But over the years, between contracts, shares, and endless meetings, he began drifting from his mother's kitchen. That morning, he scrolled through dozens of emails. KPI reports from each branch arrived like a mechanical symphony. No complaints, no laughter, only sterile numbers. He read, nodded, signed, and repeated. Everything is perfect on paper. Yet he felt nothing. Then, one email slipped between the reports. Subject line, flagged anomaly, Buckhead location. 7 complaints in 4 months. Food poisoning, stomach pain, vomiting. Health inspectors had visited twice, found nothing. He looked up. 7 complaints, 1 location, while the other 5 had only 3 combined. He touched the photo frame gently. Feed people like family. He whispered the old phrase, but if customers got sick, they weren't family anymore. On screen, the report listed the Buckhead manager's name, Rick Palmer, praised for maintaining the lowest costs in the chain. And the head chef, Blake Morrison. 2 names he remembered from brief encounters. One, charmingly flattering. The other cold, too confident. But their numbers always looked perfect. He'd never questioned them until now. He opened a drawer and pulled out a small yellow note. His mother's handwriting, ink fading with time. Never let money decide flavor. People pay for trust, not for food. Light from the window reflected off the photo, forming a soft halo around her face. For a moment, he felt her watching, not judging, just reminding. He straightened up, eyes returning to the screen. The Buckhead report waited, unresolved. Part of him wanted to forward it to internal investigations. But another part whispered, "Go see for yourself." A faint pull, like someone calling him back to that old kitchen, where everything began with love, not payroll. Outside, the city woke up. Engines, horns, voices from the street below. Inside the office, only his heartbeat matched the ticking clock. He glanced at the photo one last time before shutting down the screen. The picture seemed to smile. But behind that smile, a question lingered. Did Ruth's table still hold the soul she once built with scarred hands? Ethan stood, grabbed his coat. Light caught the small logo stitched to his chest. A round table, 2 chairs, and the words Ruth's Table below. He brushed a thumb across it and whispered, "I'll find your flavor again, Mom." And in that moment, in a city made of glass and steel, the man who once saw only numbers heard again the sound of spoons touching plates, oil sizzling, and laughter echoing from a kitchen long gone. The next morning, Ethan's office was filled with soft gray light. His assistant knocked, her voice low and steady. "You asked for the report on unusual customer complaints." Ethan looked up. "Yes, go ahead." She placed a thick folder on his desk. "Buckhead location, 7 complaints in the past 4 months. All involve food poisoning or severe stomach pain. The health department inspected twice, but found no clear violations. Ethan flipped through the pages. The same words repeated again and again. Nausea, vomiting, hospitalization, settlement. He asked, "What about the other branches?" She replied, "The other 5 combined, 3 cases total." He paused, staring at the chart. 7, in one place. 3, across 5. His tone was soft, but the words landed heavy, like a stone hitting the floor. The manager's name appeared on the report, Rick Palmer. A man he'd met at the last quarterly meeting, always confident, always smiling. Ethan picked up the phone and dialed. 3 rings. "Mr. Wellington, Mr. Cole. I guess this is about the report?" Ethan's voice stayed calm. "Correct. 7 complaints in 4 months, Rick. I want an explanation." A short laugh came from the line. "Oh, you know how some customers can be. They ask for refunds just because they waited 10 minutes. Ethan answered slowly. "Difficult customers don't appear in medical reports, Rick." A few seconds of silence followed. Rick changed tone. "There was one case, a little girl, yes. But we checked everything. Nothing wrong in the kitchen? She probably ate something before coming." Ethan read from the file. Lila Rivera, 7 years old. Hospitalized for acute food poisoning. She didn't eat anything before coming. She almost died. The line went silent. Ethan's voice dropped lower. "What did you do afterward?" Rick replied, "We handled it professionally. The family accepted a settlement. $1,200. Ethan leaned back in his chair. The words cut like a blade through his memories of his mother. He repeated quietly, "You paid for their silence?" Rick hurried to respond. No, we just wanted peace. You know how the media loves to exaggerate things." Ethan tightened his grip on the phone. 7 poisonings, Rick. You call that peace?" Rick's tone grew defensive. "You know this business, sir. Some people chase compensation. We're just protecting the brand," Ethan replied sharply. "With company money, to hide a crime with no name. No, sir, it's not like that. Enough." Ethan ended the call. He sat there for a long time, watching the light crawl across his desk. Each ray seemed to reveal something dark inside him. He reopened the folder and stared at the photo of little Lila in a hospital bed, eyes closed, IV lines across her small arms. The tiny newspaper photo made it hard to breathe. He thought of his mother. If Ruth were still alive, she would ask him one thing. "Did you protect your customers the way you protect your family?" Ethan closed the file. The room fell completely silent. The ticking clock sounded like his own heartbeat. He opened his computer and searched the Buckhead sanitation history. 2 inspections. 2 compliant results. No notes. No penalties. No evidence. A perfect curtain of clean numbers. But he knew, numbers never wash away guilt. Something beneath that silence was starting to rot. And he had to find it. He pressed the intercom. "Get Rick back on the line." His secretary's voice trembled. "Should I connect you now?" "No, leave it. I'll call later." He stood and walked toward his mother's photo. Light reflected off the glass, forming a faint halo around her face. He looked into her eyes and whispered, "I let them turn Ruth's table into a place that sends people to hospitals, Mom. I let them use your name to silence a child's cry." His breathing grew heavier. Outside, the city was calm, as if nothing had happened. But inside him, a spark had been lit. It didn't blaze yet. It smoldered, waiting for truth to fan it. Ethan returned to his desk and took a blank sheet of paper. The first line he wrote in black ink. "Buckhead investigation. Personal oversight." Below it, one more sentence. "No one gets sick again." He set the pen down and watched the ink dry. Each stroke felt like a vow unspoken. He knew he was stepping out of comfort, leaving the cold chair of command. And for the first time in years, his heart beat for the right reason. As he left the office, Ethan didn't look back at the photo. He was afraid. If he did, he would see his mother nodding quietly in approval. That night, Ethan could not sleep. The clock ticked steadily. The laptop screen cast a dim glow. He opened the reports again, searching for a sensible explanation. There was nothing. Every inspection was clean, every signature legitimate. Everything was too perfect, painfully so. He scrolled to the bottom of his inbox, through hundreds of messages. His eyes were tired, his neck stiffened. Almost by habit, he opened the spam folder. Rubbish filled the screen, ads and automated mail. But one subject stopped him cold. Please read. Urgent about Buckhead Kitchen. Sender: Samuel Hayes, cook at Ruth's Table, Buckhead. Sent 2 months earlier. He clicked. The message was short, hurried, trembling. Mr. Cole, I don't know if this reaches you, but I must try. Blake Morrison is deliberately harming customers. He mixes things into food, spits into dishes when customers complain. We are all afraid because Rick Palmer covers for him. I have proof. 4 videos. Please help. Reading those lines, Ethan felt blood chill in his veins. 2 months. The email sat in spam for 2 months. He hit reply, hands shaking slightly. Sam, are you still working there? Can you talk now? No hope. Then the screen flashed alive. Mr. Cole, I'm Sam Hayes. You got my email? Yes. Tell me everything. Sam poured the story out, like unloading a heavy weight. He described Blake's insults, the transfers, the cut hours, and the firings. He told how food was deliberately contaminated as retaliation against customers. Do you have proof? Ethan asked. Yes, 4 videos. I'll send them now. Less than a minute later, 4 attachments filled Ethan's inbox. He opened the first video. Grainy footage from a kitchen corner. Blake laughed, bent over a salad, spat into it, tossed it like nothing. A young cook whispered behind him, Chef, that customer just wanted an exchange. Blake replied coldly, and now they won't come back. Ethan opened the second file. A low-angle camera by the pass. Blake dropped a piece of meat on the floor. He glanced around, picked it up, wiped it with a towel, returned it to the pan. No apology, only indifference. The third video was darker, shaky light. Blake trained a new employee. Got a difficult customer? Don't argue. Teach them a lesson. A bit of extra salt, a drop of detergent, a wilted chili. Not lethal, just enough to keep them away. Ethan swallowed hard, his stomach tightened. The final video was close and clear. Blake stirred the chicken pot pie filling. One hand held a spoon, the other pulled a small packet from his pocket. He opened it, poured something glittering into the pot, stirred slowly, and smiled. A whisper brushed the mic. Teach these noisy ones a lesson. Ethan turned off the video. The room was so silent he could hear his breath. He looked at his mother's photo slowly. Ruth Cole still smiled kindly in the frame. A single tear fell onto the desk. He whispered, This isn't family. This is poison. The words landed like a vow. He opened his contacts and called his private lawyer. I need legal advice. I'm going undercover. And I need to know how to do this legally. The lawyer paused. You mean, you'll pose as a staff member? Yes. If I arrive as CEO, they'll hide everything before I step through the door. I must see what truly happens. Georgia is a one-party consent state. You can record if you participate in the conversation. Document time, date, and witnesses to keep it legal. Ethan nodded quietly. I understand. I will record everything. The call ended. He opened his laptop and created a new profile. Name, David Harris. Experience, 10 years of dishwashing. Address, blank. References, Morrison's Kitchen, closed. A clean, plausible resume, enough to avoid suspicion. He read Sam Hayes' last line again. Please help, we're scared. Ethan closed the laptop. His heart felt heavy as stone. Moonlight slid across the desk, reflecting off his mother's photo. He whispered, "I will do what Mom taught. Protect this family, even if it has forgotten itself." Then he switched off the lights. That night, Ethan did not sleep. He sat watching the sky lighten and began to plan. The morning after a sleepless night, Ethan sat in his lawyer's small office. On the desk, a cup of cold coffee, a few legal documents, and a silver recording pen. The lawyer watched him with a mix of concern and quiet respect. "Are you sure, Ethan? This won't be a simple trip." "I don't need simple. I need truth." The lawyer opened a file. "Georgia is a one-party consent state. You can record if you're part of the conversation. You can also film in public or at your workplace, as long as it's not a private area." Ethan nodded. "I want everything by the book. Not for revenge, but to protect what my mother built." The lawyer slid a small box toward him. Inside was a body pin camera, no larger than 2 fingertips. This model's used by inspectors. 2 taps to record, 1 to stop. If something fails, the light blinks 3 times. Ethan lifted it carefully, feeling the weight of a promise in his palm. One small device, but it could save an entire system. The lawyer asked quietly, "How long will you be gone?" "1 week. I'll go to Buckhead as David Williams, dishwasher. No phone, no email, no assistant. If anything happens, only you know where I am." The lawyer signed a note. "You're stepping from CEO to dishwasher, Ethan. Are you sure you can handle that?" Ethan smiled faintly. "I grew up in kitchens. These hands washed thousands of dishes beside my mother. If I must start again, I'll start where she did." He left the office and stepped into the street. Atlanta's sky hung gray and heavy. The wind smelled of old rain. He looked into the glass window's reflection. The suit, the watch, the polished shoes, all surface. The man staring back looked like an executive, but not Ruth Cole's son. That afternoon, he went to headquarters. Managers waited for weekly reports. Ethan opened the door, voice calm. "I'll be away for several days. No one contacts me by email or phone. If something urgent comes up, leave it for Mr. Reiner. I want to see how things run when I'm not here." One manager asked, "Business trip?" Ethan answered quietly, "Let's call it that. I just need honesty. We'll talk when I return." He walked out without looking back. The door closed, and a new chapter began. That night, he cleared his desk. He placed his mother's photo in the suitcase, beside an old apron. The apron was embroidered with Ruth's table in silver thread, frayed at the edges, still carrying the scent of flour. He held it gently. "I'll take you with me, Mom, even if you're no longer there." Back at his apartment, he began to shed his world piece by piece. The suit folded away. In its place, faded jeans, a worn shirt, cheap shoes with thin soles. He trimmed his hair, removed his watch and ring, and took off the CEO badge. What remained was just a man. In the mirror, he studied himself. No trace of Ethan Cole from Ruth's table. Now, only David Williams. A man was about to walk into a kitchen where others saw nothing but dirty dishes. He clipped the camera to his collar, pressed the button. The small light blinked once, then vanished. Everything was ready. He whispered to himself. 1 week, just 1 week to find Mom's soul again. Before leaving, he sent an internal email to the executive team. Subject, off-grid notice. Message, I'll be away for 1 week handling personal matters. No need to contact me. When I return, I want to see the system living by its original philosophy. Feed people like family. He read it again, breathed deeply, then pressed send. It felt like closing a door behind him. That evening, he walked to the downtown bus station. No car, no assistant, no one knowing where he was. On the bench, a woman wrapped sandwiches. The smell of butter filled the air. He thought of his mother, of the nights they shared food with the homeless. When the bus arrived, he rose, carrying a small suitcase that held an entire new life. Through the ride, the streetlights slid across his face, from the city's warm gold to the suburbs' cold gray. Each flicker of light felt like a descent, deeper into the shadows of the world he thought he owned. At the end of the journey, he looked out the window. The Buckhead sign blurred in the rain. Somewhere there, the kitchen of Ruth's table waited. No one knew who David Williams really was. No one knew the dishwasher about to walk in carried justice in his heart. He leaned his head against the glass and whispered, "Mom, if I do this right, no one will ever fear our kitchen again." The bus turned onto a dark road, leaving the city lights behind. Ahead lay only rain, silence, and a sun returning to where it all began. The smell of frying oil hung in the narrow kitchen like a thin layer of smoke. Knives clattered, oil popped in the pans, steam blurred the brick walls. Ethan stood in the middle of it all, apron damp, hands holding a basket of clean dishes. No one knew who he was. They only saw a new dishwasher on the morning shift. "David, wipe that counter now." A sharp voice cut through the noise. Ethan turned. Blake Morrison. Tall, white, broad-shouldered, eyes cold as steel. His chef's coat was spotless, collar buttoned tight, silver watch gleaming under the light. He didn't need to yell. One look was enough to make everyone lower their heads. Ethan nodded slightly and walked over with a towel. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from the smell, familiar, painful. The scent of what once was the soul of Ruth's table now turned into something that choked him. A delivery man pushed a cart, face flushed. "The frozen shipment's late. Temperature's down to 45. Blake glanced at his watch, but didn't even step closer. "Use it." "But it's thawed. The chicken isn't safe." "Use it." His voice was flat, cold, slicing through the air like a knife. Ethan looked at the clock on the wall, memorized the time. He bent slightly, pressed the button hidden on his collar. A faint light blinked once, unnoticed. The delivery man hesitated, glancing at a line cook. "You know the rule. We can't sign off spoiled goods." Blake walked over, grabbed the man by the collar, his voice low. "You want to lose your contract?" The man flinched, swallowed hard. "Your call." He dropped the box and left without another word. Ethan kept washing, eyes watching every move. Blake opened the box, pulled out wet packs of meat, and tossed them onto the cutting table. Water ran down to the floor in long streaks. No one spoke. A young woman at the sink met Ethan's eyes, fear shining there. He gave her a slight nod, a quiet promise that he understood. The exhaust fan roared overhead, the sound of knives hitting meat echoed dry and sharp. Blake barked orders nonstop. "Table 4, 2 pies ready in 5. Table 7, redo the mash." No one looked him in the eye. Only nods, short answers, bowed heads. Ethan looked around. This wasn't the kitchen his mother once filled with warmth. This place was cold, lifeless, powered only by fear and speed. He remembered Ruth's words. If a cook has no heart, he's just burning fire, not feeding people. Now he understood every word. A moment later, Blake walked up. "What's your name?" "David, sir." "How long have you been washing dishes?" 10 years. "Don't make noise. I hate hearing plates clink." "Yes, chef." Blake stared a moment longer, then turned away. Ethan went back to work, every sound embedding itself into memory. A crate of potatoes was dragged out, the smell of mold rising. Blake glanced, waved a hand. "Use the top half, toss the rest." A worker whispered, "But chef, the top's soft too." "You want to get out of here?" "No, chef." "Then do it." Ethan saw the fear in that man's eyes. A fear that silenced truth and turned wrong into routine. He bit his lip, forced himself to stay calm. The camera kept rolling. Every word, every movement, every scrap of meat hitting the floor. By lunchtime, the air was thick with grease, smoke, and exhaustion. Outside, customers laughed and chatted, never knowing their meals began with cruelty. Ethan saw a new worker drop a tray of pies. Blake stepped up, didn't ask why, just slapped his shoulder. "You just cost me $20. Clean it." The worker bent down, hands shaking, picking up crumbs. Ethan recorded it all, heartbeat quickening. He had to stay silent, yet his mother's voice echoed inside. "Feed people like family." He searched the room for anything that still carried that spirit. There was nothing, only fear and silence. By late afternoon, Blake gathered the leftovers, dumping them into a large bin. "Tomorrow, mix this into the morning batch. Don't waste it." Ethan looked closer. It was the same chicken filling, the one he knew wasn't safe. He recorded every second, heat rising in his chest. When the shift finally ended, everyone rushed out. Ethan washed his hands under cold water, calloused palms turning pale. He looked around once more and saw it. The old wooden plaque is still hanging on the wall. Ruth's table. Grease, dust, and scratches covered it. The words, "Feed people like family," were barely visible. He reached out, wiped the grime gently. The oil lifted, the words came back to life. He whispered, "I'll clean it, Mom, not just the sign." Then he turned off the water, hung up his apron, and stepped outside. The sun dipped behind the buildings, light fading from gold to gray. The day had ended, but the investigation had only begun. The next noon, the restaurant was packed. Knives and forks clinked. The kitchen bell rang non-stop. The smell of smoke and butter filled the air. Ethan stood behind the dish pit, eyes fixed on the chaos ahead. Everything moved fast and cold. No laughter. No chatter. Only Blake's voice, sharp, rhythmic, commanding. "Order 24, medium steak, go." "Order 30, chicken pie, 2 minutes." The tension stretched like a wire ready to snap. Moments later, Maria rushed in from the dining area, her face pale. "Chef, table 7, says the steak's too salty." Blake looked up, eyes flashing. "What did they say exactly?" "She just said it's saltier than usual." Blake set down his knife, a thin smile cutting across his face. "Bring it here, I'll handle it." Ethan watched carefully. Blake took the plate, turned his back, and stood between the grill and the spice rack. He pulled a small bottle from his apron pocket, opened it, dripped something onto the steak. A faint, burnt smell spread. He brushed on a new layer of butter, seared it again, then said calmly, "Send it back. Tell them it's on the house." Maria hesitated, wanted to speak, but just nodded. "Yes, chef." Ethan followed the plate with his eyes. He didn't know what was in that bottle, but Blake's look said enough. Something wasn't right. He turned on the hidden camera, but too late. The act was done. All he caught was Blake's faint smile as the plate left the kitchen. An hour later, Maria returned. The table left early. Small tip. Blake asked, "What did they say?" "They said the dish had a strange, bitter taste." Blake shrugged. "Maybe they can't handle butter." He turned away, as if nothing had happened. Ethan wiped the counter, jaw tight. No proof, only the sinking certainty that he'd just watched a small crime being disguised as service. Not big enough for police, but deadly enough to poison trust. By afternoon, the restaurant quieted. Maria stood beside the sink, eyes tired and darkened by exhaustion. Ethan poured her a cup of water. "How long have you worked here?" "Over a year." "Have you ever seen anything strange?" She paused. "You're new, right?" "Yeah, just dishes. But you've seen it." Her voice dropped to a whisper. Blake can't stand complaints. If a customer says something's too salty, too cold, too tough, he calls it disrespect. And he punishes them. Ethan asked quietly, "Punishes? How?" Maria glanced around, then whispered, "He remakes the dish, adds something. I don't know what, but afterward, customers always stop eating. Some even get sick. A few threw up right there." She looked down, fists tightening. "I tried telling Rick Palmer once. He said, 'Stay out of the kitchen business.' So I stayed quiet." Ethan nodded slowly. "You're afraid of him." aren't you? Maria gave a tired smile. Everyone is. Here, people aren't fired with paperwork. They're pushed out, with fear, with threats, with lost shifts. Then they leave on their own. Ethan touched his collar, switched the recorder on. He spoke slowly, clearly. Maria, could you repeat that? She froze. What are you doing? I just need proof. She shook her head. Proof won't save anyone here. You don't know, Blake. Try me. Maria looked straight at him, eyes caught between hope and despair. You really want to know? She whispered, each word like ice. He punishes people who complain. The words hung heavy, so real the kitchen seemed to stop for a heartbeat. Ethan nodded softly. Thank you. She turned away, wiping the counter, as if she'd said nothing at all. That evening, Ethan sat alone in the staff room. He replayed Maria's voice again and again. Each time, his chest grew heavier. A restaurant bearing his mother's name was now punishing the very people who trusted it. He wrote in his notebook. Small violations, big fear. Footsteps past the door, slow, heavy. Blake. Ethan closed the notebook, pretending to fold towels. Blake stopped. You did well today, David. Thank you, Chef. Keep quiet and work hard. That's all that matters here. Yes, Chef. Blake smiled, walked away. Ethan watched him go. He knew these small evils never stopped. They spread like oil in water. And soon, someone would pay the price. When the shift ended, Maria left without a word. Ethan cleaned the sink, looked up at the old wooden sign. The words, "Feed people like family," glimmered faintly under the weak light. He whispered, "What kind of family hurts each other for a complaint?" He turned off the lights and stepped outside. Rain was falling. Each drop hit hard, blending with the storm growing inside him. A storm not just in the sky, but in the heart of Ruth's table itself. The next morning, the sky was still gray. The cold scent of the freezer filled the storage room as Ethan pulled open the steel door. He stepped inside, pale light reflected on the wet tile floor. The air bit into his skin, each breath turned into fog. He began checking inventory like any other day, but in truth, he was searching for something else. Boxes of chicken, vegetables, tubs of butter, rows of aluminum trays stacked high. Everything was labeled, yet what he sought wasn't listed anywhere. He remembered Maria's words. Blake keeps a small notebook, always writes something in it. No one was allowed to touch it. Ethan opened each crate, each shelf, eyes scanning slowly. A spice tin slipped and fell. Its lid popped off. The smell of pepper and chili powder filled the air. He bent down to gather it and saw something wedged between the wall and a wooden panel. A small black notebook, leather cracked, corners stained with grease. He picked it up. Fine dust stuck to his hands. The cover bore just one word in silver ink: methods. No name, no number. Only that single word, cold and bare. He opened the first page. Scrawled in thick black ink. 1. Cross allergy. 2. Expired goods. 3. Foreign objects. 4. Floor touch. His pulse quickened. Next to each line were notes, neat, clinical, like recipes. 1. Use peanut traces for a mild effect. 2. 1 day over is fine if cooked. 3. Metal piece, small enough to notice, big enough to scare. 4. Drop, rinse, reheat. Ethan turned more pages. Dates, dishes, and codes for each incident. At the bottom corner of every page, 2 initials. B. M. Blake Morrison. Ethan swallowed hard. It was the first physical proof. No rumor, no video. A written confession from the head chef himself. He took out the small phone hidden in his pocket, switched to silent camera mode. Page by page, every word, every mark, every symbol captured. His fingers stiffened in the cold, but he kept going. Near the end, a bold line caught his eye. written in uppercase. Remember, no cameras near prep. A dark stroke underlined it like a warning. Ethan closed the notebook, placed it back carefully. He wiped his hands, straightened the boxes, but footsteps echoed behind him. David? Blake's voice, close, sharp. Ethan turned, forcing calm. Yes, Chef? What are you doing in the freezer? Just checking stock, Chef. Some chicken boxes were missing labels. Blake stared at him, eyes narrow, studying. You don't check inventory unless you're told to. Sorry, Chef. I just wanted to be sure nothing spoiled. Yesterday's batch seemed softer than usual. A pause. Then Blake nodded slowly. Good. Caution's rare around here. He turned, voice steady as he walked away. But next time, don't touch what doesn't belong to you. Ethan lowered his head. Understood, Chef. When the door shut, the cold still clung to him. He stood motionless, hearing his own heartbeat pounding in the silence. Blake suspected. That line, don't touch what doesn't belong to you, wasn't advice. It was a warning. Ethan breathed deep, glancing back at the hidden shelf. The black notebook lay there, like a sleeping serpent. One wrong move, and everything would explode. He stepped out of the freezer, wiping sweat despite the chill. He felt it. He had just crossed the line between safety and danger. From this moment on, the game had changed. He wasn't just observing anymore. He was holding the heart of the secret. That afternoon, after the shift ended, Ethan opened his private notebook. Found a black notebook titled Methods. Contains evidence of intentional contamination. Owner, B. M. Blake Morrison. He underlined the name 3 times. Before leaving, he sent an encrypted message to his lawyer. I have physical proof. Will continue recording. If I go silent for more than 48 hours, open the file. He looked around. The restaurant was empty now. Only the hum of the freezer fan filled the air. The space felt heavy, aware of being watched. Ethan turned off the lights, carried a trash bag outside. The drizzle still fell, gray rain on the back lot. Inside his pocket, the phone vibrated softly. Photo backup complete. He looked up at the old wooden plaque behind the kitchen. The name Ruth's Table nearly vanished beneath layers of grease and dust. He whispered, The first proof, Mom. I've found it. A cold gust passed through. The sign creaked faintly. Ethan turned and walked toward the parking lot. He didn't see Blake watching from the second-floor window. Silent, suspicious. In that kitchen, the truth had just been touched. And the real storm was only beginning. That night, after the last shift, the kitchen of Ruth's Table was swallowed by darkness. Ethan carried a trash bag down the narrow alley, steam rising from the drain, damp air heavy with the smell of mold. He stopped, hearing footsteps behind him. A low, careful voice broke the silence. You're not really new here, are you? Ethan turned. Samuel Hayes stood there, jacket faded, eyes sunken from sleepless nights. The streetlight cast a pale glow on his tired but steady face. Ethan stayed quiet for a few seconds, then spoke softly. I think you already know the answer. Samuel nodded. I noticed the first day you walked in. New guys don't look around that much. Ethan asked quietly. Why didn't you say something earlier? Because around here, speaking early means losing your job, or worse. Ethan set the trash bag down, crossed his arms. You were the one who sent the email. Samuel nodded faintly. I thought it was lost in the void. 2 months went by. No reply. I figured you were like the rest, people who only care about numbers. Ethan looked him in the eyes. No, I care about people. Samuel sighed, leaning back against the wall. I filmed those 4 videos. After the last time I saw Blake pour something into the pie mix, I couldn't sleep. I thought about leaving, but if I go, who stops him? Ethan sat beside him. You're not alone anymore. They sat in silence for a while. Only the sound of wind passing through, carrying the faint scent of flour left in the air. Samuel spoke quietly. I lost 2 friends because of him. One was fired after arguing back. The other was in the hospital after breathing chemical fumes. Blake called it an accident during shift. I call it organized cruelty. Ethan nodded slowly. Do you still have the video backups? Yes. Saved them on a USB, hidden in the power cabinet outside the freezer. If something happens to me, it won't disappear. I'll need that tomorrow. And I'll record the rest. Samuel studied him, unsure. You talk like someone who can actually do something. Ethan's voice was calm. I'm someone who has to. A pause hung between them. Samuel let out a weary laugh. You sound like a movie. No, I sound like a man who's seen enough. Wind pushed through the alley, rustling papers near the trash bin. Ethan looked up at the second-floor window, where a faint office light still burned. Blake thinks he's untouchable, but truth always finds a way out. Samuel's voice wavered. I'm tired, David. Tired of watching good people bow while bad ones thrive. Tired of hearing kids cry from food that made them sick. I just want this to end. Ethan placed a hand on his shoulder. Tomorrow, we end it. Together. Samuel whispered. You have a plan? I do. I've got the recordings, the methods book, and Maria's testimony. Tomorrow, I just need one more piece. After that, no one can deny it. Hope flickered in Samuel's eyes for the first time. You know, I once believed Ruth's table was a place where decency still lived. Hearing you now, I believe it again. Ethan smiled faintly. My mother believed it before both of us. Samuel froze. Your mother? The founder of Ruth's table. Samuel's eyes widened. You're... Don't say it. Call me David until this is over. When the truth comes out, you'll know my real name. Samuel lowered his head, voice soft. Then I'll guard your secret, the way you're guarding ours. Ethan nodded. Tomorrow, just work as usual. When I give the signal, stand still, and let the camera do the rest. Got it. They stayed there a little longer, neither speaking. In the distance, insects chirped, cars hummed along the main road. A strange feeling filled the silence between them, fear and peace intertwined. Samuel whispered, Do you really think justice exists? Ethan looked up at the gray sky. Not always, but if enough people believe in it, it comes back. He rose, pulling his jacket tight. Tomorrow, everything changes. Samuel called after him, voice rough. Because you believe in justice? Ethan answered softly. Because I believe in my mother, and she taught me, anyone who does wrong in this kitchen will one day stand in the light. The words drifted away with the wind. They left the alley, walking in opposite directions, carrying the same unspoken promise. Tomorrow, they would finish what Blake had started. Not with fear, but with truth. That morning, the sky felt heavy and thick. No one spoke, only the sound of footsteps on tile and the hiss of boiling soup filled the air. Blake arrived early, earlier than usual. He smiled as he looked around the kitchen. Good, today I'm making breakfast for everyone. The team exchanged confused glances. Blake never cooked staff meals himself. From the dish pit, Ethan quietly tapped the record button on the camera hidden inside his shirt pocket. Chicken pot pie, Blake said softly, as if granting a gift. Thank you all for your hard work. He set 6 steaming pies on the counter. The buttery smell was rich, the crust golden and perfect, almost too perfect. Then he pointed. David, Maria, Sam, Ramon, Andre, and Theo, these are for you. Ethan looked around. Everyone he named was Black or Latino. Across the room, 3 white employees ate sandwiches and laughed. None of them was offered pie. An invisible line had just been drawn, cold and clear. Ethan sat down with the group. They hesitated, until Maria forced a small laugh. At least today we're eating something fancy. No one answered. Blake leaned against the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, watching. His eyes swept the table, calm and sharp, as if waiting for something. Ethan picked up his fork, cut the first bite. Steam rose, the scent of butter and cream. He chewed slowly. The first bite, warm, savory, perfect. The second, wrong. A strange taste, bitter, metallic. He stopped. Something sharp scraped the inside of his cheek. He reached in, pulled out a piece of latex glove, flesh-colored, dripping with gravy. The torn end bulged. He squeezed it. A shard of metal clinked onto the plate. The sound rang through the kitchen. Short, sharp, like a gunshot in silence. Everyone froze. Maria dropped her fork. Samuel shot up from his chair. "Oh my God, what is that?" Ethan didn't answer. He stared at the glove fragment, brown sauce dripping onto the table. Each drop fell like a countdown. He rose, voice low and steady. "Stop eating! Everyone stop! Now!" Ramon's spoon hit the floor. Theo's hands trembled. "There's something in mine, too." He poked at the crust. A jagged piece of plastic surfaced, glistening with steam. Ethan wrapped the metal shard in a napkin. His voice hardened. "Where's Blake?" Maria stammered. "He was just standing here." "Where is he now?" No one answered. Ethan pulled out his real phone, tone-clipped and cold. "Lock the doors. Now. Don't let anyone leave until the police arrive." Samuel ran toward the front. "The main door's open. He's running." "Block it!" Ethan shouted. The kitchen swelled with panic. "Maria, check if any orders have already gone out." She ran off, came back seconds later, face pale. 4 dishes served, between 7 and 9. "Write the table numbers. Everyone." Ethan spoke into the phone again, voice firm. "Emergency. Possible deliberate contamination. Ruth's table, Buckhead. Seal the exits. Repeat, seal all exits." He hung up and turned to the trembling crew. Maria was crying softly. Samuel's hands shook. Ethan raised the napkin high under the light. The small metal piece gleamed, coated in gravy. "Listen carefully." His voice filled the air, calm, but burning. This breakfast wasn't gratitude. It was a test. He looked at each of them in turn, and he just signed his own ending. Sirens wailed in the distance, drawing closer. Blake hadn't returned. Ethan strode toward the office. The door hung open. Papers littered the desk, a half-zipped backpack spilling invoices. He stepped inside, the evidence still wrapped in his hand. A mini-fridge hummed in the corner. On top of it, a note scrawled in red marker. "Staff only." Ethan set the napkin down. "Fine." He lifted his phone, aimed it at the desk. Day 17, direct evidence. Deliberate poisoning during staff meal. The sirens stopped right outside the restaurant. Ethan took a breath, turned toward the hallway, voice steady as steel. "Lock the front door. No one leaves." Everyone froze. Maria's voice cracked. Who are you?" Ethan met her eyes, sad but unwavering. "Someone who's here to end this." He walked past the damp footprints on the floor, past the crumbs of pie scattered across the tiles. The wrapped metal piece rattled softly in his hand, like the heartbeat of justice drawing near. Outside, red and blue lights flashed against the grease-stained walls. The office door closed behind him, and silence fell, like a curtain before the storm. Ethan stepped into the office. The door creaked open, the air thick with the smell of sweat and damp paper. Blake was stuffing cash and folders into a backpack. At the sound of footsteps, he froze. Their eyes met, the space between them thick and hot like boiling oil. "Going somewhere, Blake?" Blake turned, his face pale, then quickly tried to recover. "David, I'm just cleaning up. You saw what happened today. Pure chaos." Ethan took a slow step forward, his voice low. "I saw. And I saw more than you think." He opened the napkin and placed the glove fragment and metal shard on the desk. Cold light flickered off the steel, reflecting across Blake's face. "This came from the pie this morning. Your pie." Blake stayed silent for a few seconds, then gave a dry laugh. You think I put that there? Someone's framing me. You're new here. You don't know how things work. Ethan stared at him. I know more than you think. I found your black notebook. Methods. Blake froze. His eyes flickered, fear mixed with anger. You went into the freezer? Yes. You opened my things? Yes. Because they're not personal. They're evidence. Blake laughed again, sharp and bitter. Who do you think you are, talking to me like that? Ethan spoke slowly, each word heavy as a hammer. I'm the one who ends what you started. I'm the son of the woman who built Ruth's table. The air shattered. Blake took a step back. Your mother, Ruth Cole? Yes. The woman who built this place with burned hands. And you turned it into a crime scene. Blake swallowed, his voice cracking. You're insane. You pretended to be someone else just to trick me? Ethan's tone was calm, steady. I went undercover because my mother's kitchen became a system of cruelty. Sirens grew louder outside. Blake heard them. Panic flickered in his eyes. You don't understand, David. Management pushed hard, and customers complained. I was protecting the restaurant. By putting metal and plastic in their food? Ethan asked, voice sharp as a blade. By poisoning the people who trusted you? Blake shouted, I didn't poison anyone. They were warnings, just to scare them. Fear works better than apologies sometimes. Ethan looked at him, not with anger now, but with sorrow. You just confessed. The back door burst open. A woman's voice rang clear. Blake Morrison? Blake spun around. A badge flashed under the fluorescent light. I'm Inspector Darlene Davis, City Health Department. 2 police officers followed close behind. Blake's voice rose. You have no right to barge in here. Davis held up her credentials. By the right to protect the lives you've endangered. The officers stepped forward. Ethan pointed to the desk. Evidence, right there. 1 glove, 1 metal fragment, and a verbal confession. Blake glared at him, voice shaking. You set me up. I'll sue you. I'll tell them this was staged. Ethan said nothing. He simply pulled out his phone, opened the hidden recording, and played it. On screen, Blake grinned as he poured something into the pot. His voice was crystal clear. Let the complainers learn their lesson. Blake's face drained of color. One officer read the charges aloud. Blake Morrison, you are under arrest for deliberate endangerment, use of harmful substances, and violation of food safety law. Blake stumbled backward, hitting the desk. This is a trap. You can't do this. Ethan's voice was quiet, unnervingly calm. No. This is justice. Blake screamed. I serve thousands of customers a month. A few sick people don't make me a criminal. Ethan pointed straight at him. Thousands ate your food. 7 ended up in hospitals. 1 was a 7-year-old girl. Do you remember her? Blake said nothing, eyes darting for an exit. The officers blocked the door. Ethan stepped closer, voice almost a whisper. Do you remember Sofia Rivera? The child you said must have been sick already? She still can't eat solid food. Blake trembled. I didn't mean to. Ethan cut him off. Intent doesn't erase cruelty. Inspector Davis lifted a sealed evidence bag, holding the metal piece inside. This object could have killed someone. She looked straight at Blake. You'll explain yourself to a judge, not a kitchen. Blake tried to pull away. You can't. But when the handcuffs clicked open, he froze. Ethan watched, eyes heavy with grief and finality. He said softly, but everyone heard. Surprise, Chef! Your nightmare just clocked in. Blake's head dropped as the cuffs snapped shut. The officers recited his rights, each word falling like nails sealing a coffin. He muttered, You'll regret this, Cole. Ethan replied quietly. No, I'm just getting started. You're not. Inspector Davis turned to the staff. All employees will be interviewed. All food products are confiscated. This facility is closed until further notice. Ethan nodded. I'll take full responsibility for any loss, as long as the truth is recorded. As police led Blake through the hallway, the team stood frozen. Maria covered her face, sobbing. Samuel stood behind her, eyes red. Ethan said nothing. He just gripped the paper pinned on the wall, the one written in his mother's handwriting. Feed people like family. He looked outside as Blake was led into the police car. Red and blue lights flashed across Ethan's face, then disappeared down the street. In his heart, one truth remained. Family never poisons family. And today, he had protected what those words truly meant. The kitchen of Ruth's table stood silent, as if a storm had just passed through. Afternoon light filtered through the windows, falling on pots still clouded with steam. No one spoke. Everyone stayed exactly where they'd been when Blake was taken away in handcuffs. Ethan removed his apron, wiped his hands with a white towel. He looked around, meeting every pair of eyes. Maria was still trembling. Samuel kept his head down, fingers twisting the brim of his cap. Andre exhaled softly. "What just happened?" he whispered. Ethan took a slow step forward. "I owe all of you the truth." The room turned toward him. He removed his cap, set it on the counter. "My name isn't David Williams." Silence. "My name is Ethan Cole, CEO of Ruth's Table." A murmur rippled through the room, then vanished. Maria stammered. You own this place?" Ethan nodded. "Yes. And I'm also the son of Ruth Cole." No one breathed. Samuel's eyes widened, disbelief flooding his face. The man who had washed dishes beside him all week was the one running the entire company. Ethan spoke quietly, but every word carried weight. "I didn't come here to expose anyone. I came to remember why my mother built this place." He paused, eyes turning to the faded wooden plaque on the wall. The old motto was still there, worn but unbroken. "Feed people like family." Ethan continued. "I read reports. I heard excuses. But I didn't hear people. Today, I did. I saw fear, exhaustion, and kindness buried under silence." Maria's voice broke. "We just wanted to be treated fairly. But no one's been listening. For a long time." Ethan stepped closer, placed a hand on her shoulder. "Starting today, that changes." He looked around the room. "Every employee gets 3 paid days off this week. Anyone who needs a medical check, the company will cover everything." Ramon blinked. "Are you serious?" Ethan nodded. "Dead serious. I want everyone to be safe before we rebuild. And I want you to know, I take responsibility for what happened." He turned to Samuel. "Mr. Hayes." Samuel straightened. Yes, sir? You tried to warn us. You saved evidence. You chose truth when it was dangerous. As of today, I'm appointing you kitchen manager of Buckhead." The room erupted in surprise. Samuel froze, eyes wet. I don't deserve this." Ethan smiled faintly. "You do, because people like you keep the soul of Ruth's table alive." Maria clapped first. Then the others joined, soft at first, then steady, like the heartbeat of a kitchen coming back to life. Ethan turned toward the sunlight spilling across the wooden counter. "My mother used to say, cooking isn't just about feeding bodies. It's about feeding souls. And when people are afraid, food loses its taste." He looked back at them, his tone softer now. "I let offices, KPIs, and reports blind me. I let you all carry pain in silence. Today, I'm sorry. Not with words, with action." He walked to the scheduling board, tore down the old sheet, and pinned a new one. "This week, Rick Palmer is suspended indefinitely. We'll review every procedure, every chain of command. No one uses power as a weapon here again." Andre hesitated. "What about us, the ones who stayed quiet?" Ethan met his eyes. "Silence isn't a crime. But from now on, it's no longer an option." Samuel nodded slowly. "I promise, no one will be afraid in this kitchen again." Ethan nodded back. "And I promise, I'll never let my mother down again." Maria stepped forward, holding a small photograph. Ruth Cole, smiling gently, a wooden spoon in her hand. I've kept this since my first day. I think she'd want you to have it now. Ethan took the photo. His eyes blurred in the light. My mother always said, if a meal is cooked with kindness, it heals more than hunger. The room fell silent. No fear, no tension. Only a quiet peace, like the sound of a heart restarting. Ethan placed the photo on the counter where everyone could see it. His voice lowered to a near whisper. We'll rebuild. One dish, one person, one value at a time. Because Ruth's table isn't just a restaurant. It's a promise. Outside, the sirens had stopped. The sky had cleared. Maria wiped her tears, smiling faintly. Maybe. Today's the first day I actually want to cook again. Ethan smiled back. Then let's begin. But this time, we cook like my mother's still here. Samuel asked softly, what do we start with? Ethan glanced toward the old cast-iron pot in the corner. The one Ruth had used when she taught him how to stir his first sauce. Chicken pot pie, he said. But the right way. Laughter rippled through the room, mingling with tears. A dark chapter had closed. And in the warm scent of butter, chicken, and freshly baked dough, Ruth's table returned. Not just through the food, but through the people who remembered why it mattered. A week later, Ruth's table was still closed to customers, but wide open to change. The familiar hum of the kitchen had returned, now mixed with the sounds of drills, hammers, and quiet rebuilding. Tiny cameras were being installed on the ceiling, near the doors, and above the prep stations. No one complained. They understood transparency wasn't about control, it was about protection. Ethan stood in the center of the kitchen, watching the tech crew finish the new system. The monitors flickered to life, each corner bright, clear, safe. He opened a new handbook, its wooden brown cover embossed in gold, the Ruth's Way Handbook. On the first page, a single line read, Feed people like family, serve like it matters. Samuel walked in, spotless chef coat, a new name tag gleaming on his chest. All copies printed, sir. Everyone's got one. Ethan nodded. Good. And remember, it's not a rule book, it's a promise. Maria passed by, arms full of training binders. I read it already. Page 3 says, complaints are lessons, not targets. I like that. Ethan smiled. My mother wrote that line first. She believed complaints are invitations to listen, not excuses to punish. For a moment, the room fell still, as if each person were engraving those words into memory. Samuel glanced at his checklist. The new review system has 3 parts: food safety, team spirit, and customer feedback. Every week, one random team member rates the whole group. Ethan nodded. That's peer accountability. No one's small in a family. They began resetting the space. Name tags replaced, aprons freshly washed, the logo restitched in white thread on red fabric. Maria placed a small bouquet on the counter. For Mrs. Ruth. Samuel smiled softly. She'd love that. By afternoon, the health inspection team returned. Inspector Davis stood in the doorway, scanning the renewed kitchen. 7 days, and it's like a different world. Ethan bowed slightly. We learn fast, when the mistake is big enough. They checked the fridges, tested temperatures, and verified suppliers. Every reading passed. One of Davis's aides smiled. Perfect score. 0 violations. Maria gasped, eyes wet. Applause broke out, gentle but full of pride. Ethan stepped forward, pinned the certified report to the board. Above it, he taped a handwritten note in black ink. Perfection isn't the goal, integrity is. That afternoon, they reopened. The first customers hesitated at the door, then smiled when they saw the lit kitchen and the team standing tall. The scent of fresh pies filled the air. Golden light streamed through the window, catching the wooden table where Ruth once sat. Maria placed the first plate on the counter, whispering, chicken pot pie, for the soul. Ethan stood beside her, watching the rhythm return. No one barked orders. No one was afraid. Samuel circled the room, adjusting small details, his voice steady. Keep temps consistent. Don't let trays sit too long. Andre answered, Got it, chef? From now on, that was his title. Customers took their first bites, eyes lighting up. An elderly couple nodded. Tastes just like before. Just like Ruth's cooking. Maria heard, turned away to hide her tears. Ethan moved beside Samuel. You know, I used to think being a CEO meant control. Now I know it means trust. Samuel smiled. We'll honor that trust. Ethan patted his shoulder. You lead now. Samuel blinked, then nodded. And you? I'll stand back and listen, the way my mother did. The doorbell chimed. New guests. No rush. Every movement synced in quiet harmony. No shouting. No fear. Only the rhythm of knives on boards, the hiss of pans, and the soft scent of pie, like memory turned warm again. Outside, the evening light glowed gold against Ruth's portrait on the wall. Below it, a new line had been added. Because family feeds more than hunger. Ethan stood in the corner, watching it all move like music. Maria laughed softly. Samuel gave directions. Andre called the tickets. Life filled every inch. No cracks, no dread, only pride and dignity. Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, breathing in the smell of butter and warmth. And somewhere, deep inside that scent, he could almost hear her voice. Gentle, distant, full of love. Good job, son. Keep feeding their hearts. Ethan opened his eyes. The flames burned steadily. Ruth's table was alive again, brighter, truer, and warmer than ever. Late afternoon wrapped the city in a soft golden light. Ethan carried a box of warm chicken pot pie, steam rising faintly in front of his face. He walked down the hospital corridor, where the scent of disinfectant mixed with the sound of rubber soles on tile. On the box, a small handwritten note read, For Lila, made with care. When he reached the room, the young nurse recognized him instantly. You're from Ruth's table, aren't you? Ethan nodded gently. I just want to see her, for a moment. The nurse smiled. She still remembers that pie, but hasn't dared to eat it again. The door opened. White light filled the small room. On the bed sat Lila Rivera, leaning against a pillow, clutching a worn, stuffed bear. Her mother looked up, recognizing him. Her eyes hesitated, then softened when she saw the box in his hands. Ethan placed it on the bedside table. I heard Lila likes chicken pot pie. The girl stared at him, curious, cautious. How did you know? A friend from the kitchen told me. Did you make it? Ethan smiled. We made it together, just for you. Her mother held her hand tightly. She's still scared, you know. Since that day, she's only eaten soup. Ethan nodded. I know. That's why I came, to apologize, and to try again. He opened the box. Warm air drifted out, carrying the scent of butter, chicken, and herbs. The room softened, felt warmer. Lila looked at the pie, then at her mother. Mom, it smells like before I got sick. Her mother hesitated. You don't have to... But Lila interrupted softly. I want to try. Just one bite. Ethan handed her a spoon, his hand trembling slightly. She took a small bite. Everyone held their breath. Lila chewed slowly, eyes closing. A few seconds passed, then her face relaxed, and a tiny smile appeared. It doesn't hurt anymore. Her mother burst into tears, covering her face. Ethan stood still, his eyes glistening. The girl looked up at him. Mister, the bad man who made me sick, did he make this pie too? Ethan shook his head, voice low and steady. No, this one was made by someone good. Someone who cooks while thinking of his little sister. Lila tilted her head. Why? Because she used to be sick too. He promised to learn how to cook so well that no child like you would ever be afraid again. She was quiet for a moment. Did he keep his promise? He's keeping it right now. Lila smiled, taking another small bite. I think I like him. Ethan chuckled softly. I think he'd be happy to hear that. Her mother placed her hand over his. You didn't have to come here, but thank you. You just helped my daughter overcome a fear medicine couldn't touch. Ethan replied gently. It's nothing, ma'am. I just brought the dish my mother taught me. She called it the food of kindness. Lila grinned. I want to meet her. Ethan looked down, his voice slowing. She's gone. But every time someone smiles because of her food, she's still here. Lila squeezed his hand. So, she's here now, right? Yes. Right here in this room. The girl looked toward the window, where sunset light filtered through the curtains. I see it. It's really bright. Ethan smiled, soft as wind. That's the light of people who taught us how to love through what we do. Moments later, the little girl drifted to sleep, a faint smile still on her lips. Her mother whispered, You've given us faith again, after months of only fear. Ethan stood, closing the box with half the pie still inside. Keep the rest for her. Tomorrow, if she wakes and takes one more bite, it means the world has healed a little more. He bowed slightly and stepped into the hallway. Golden light stretched across the wall, his footsteps quiet against the floor. At the end of the corridor, he paused, watching the light spill through the window into a long beam. He took a deep breath and whispered, Thank you, Mom. Today, your recipe saved another heart. Outside, the wind brushed through the trees, soft and warm like a blessing. And somewhere, in the faint scent of chicken and butter still clinging to his hands, Ethan could almost hear Ruth's laughter. Gentle, distant, and full of love. Ethan stepped out of the hospital. The air carried the scent of sunlight and dry leaves. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight in his chest lift. Each step felt lighter, carried by a faith recently restored. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Samuel's name appeared on the screen. He answered. What's going on, Sam? A hesitant voice came through. Midtown branch. Something's off with this morning's delivery. I think you should take a look. Ethan stayed quiet for a few seconds, eyes on the street glowing in soft gold. A breeze moved through, carrying faint car horns from afar. Then he smiled, low, calm, sure. It never ends, but that's leadership. Samuel exhaled. Want me to wait for you? Ethan looked up. Sunlight streamed through thin clouds. No need. Handle it the way we learned. Ask, listen, document. If you need me, I'll come later. Got it. He ended the call, slipped the phone back into his pocket. A light wind brushed the paper in his hand. The small note Lila had written before he left. Thank you for cooking with heart. Ethan looked at the crooked handwriting and smiled. He slid the note into his wallet, beside the old photo of his mother. Ruth's voice seemed to echo gently in his mind. Warm, calm, steady. You can't save everyone, but you can start again every day. He walked slowly down the street, past a corner cafe that smelled of fresh roast. In his mind, faces appeared. Maria's bright laugh, Samuel's firm direction, and Andre's wiping the counters with care. They were living exactly as Ruth once believed they could. At the crosswalk, the light turned green. Ethan looked ahead, where sunlight poured between buildings. A long, bright path stretching forward. A journey without an end, only the duty to keep walking. He spoke softly, almost to himself. Real leadership isn't fixing what broke once. It's showing up every day, to keep it right. He moved forward. His footsteps blended with the rhythm of the city. Car doors closing, wheels rolling, voices weaving into motion. In his mind, another sound rose. The oven clicking on at Ruth's table. The hiss of heat. The golden smell of chicken pie fills the kitchen again. A new day is beginning. Another circle of trust, responsibility, and quiet kindness. Ethan smiled, closing his eyes for a brief second. Sunlight touched his face, warming the air around him. And in that glow, His mother's voice returned once more. Feed people like family. His breath softened into the light. The sky ahead opened wide and bright. And, somewhere inside the kitchen of Ruth's table, a pie had just turned perfectly golden. Its scent rises like a promise kept. A gentle breeze drifted through the street. It carried the faint aroma of something freshly baked. Ethan stopped, watching sunlight fade across the road ahead. Everything felt complete, yet quietly beginning again. Because justice doesn't live only in courtrooms. It lives in how we work, how we listen, how we treat each other every single day. He walked on, his voice steady, warm, reflective. No one can fix the whole world, but anyone can choose a small corner and keep it right. If you lead a team, listen before you command. If you serve others, remember, every customer carries a story, a fear, a hope. Because when we choose to treat each other like family, the world grows warmer, one meal, one act at a time. If this story touched you, share it. Leave a comment about the smallest kindness you've ever seen. And if you believe compassion can save a life, subscribe so you don't miss the journeys still to come. Because sometimes, a story doesn't just change the listener, it awakens the one who tells it. And in the faint scent of pie drifting through the wind, we know Ruth's table is still glowing, somewhere out there, in every heart that still remembers how to cook with love.